I've had this video on the back burner a bit. I wasn't sure exactly how I was gonna approach it, if anyone would even be interested, and how to just get over how entirely baffled I am by this entire subject matter. But I gotta go up to bat here. I'm gonna go up to bat for one of my old favorites. So this whole thing started around the time that Thunderbolts was coming out, right? And I was surprised. I saw a lot of tweets defending the film, saying that essentially Natasha Romanoff, the original Black Widow, is terrible. She's a terrible character, and that Yelena is wonderful, saying that I enjoy Yelena far more than I ever did Natasha, and just tweets with tens of thousands of views. One person saying, really, really disparaging the original Black Widow, saying that she just killed people with her legs. I literally can't remember anything else that she would do other than kill people with her legs. What? People really, really talking disparagingly of her for being too stoic, saying that she didn't even have personality until perhaps Endgame and Black Widow the movie, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard, and it just kept compiling one thing after another. I couldn't understand, where is all this coming from? Once again, tweets with tens of thousands of views. And, you can kind of cope with it after that. Maybe this is just being astroturfed or something. But apparently, I'm even listening to, some YouTubers, and they're taking a similar stance.
Yelena is more or less the main character here, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I like her way more than her sister Natasha. For 90% of her film appearances, Black Widow was just your standard femme fatale. That is until Endgame, where they made her actually likable, so that they could kill her. But Yelena, in comparison, is a much more likable person. She isn't just your average Marvel quip machine, she feels like a person with realistic problems. And I like that her grief and depression don't manifest in ways that you would expect from a story like this. I think it would have been so easy to make her a mysterious edgelord who doesn't talk about her feelings.
I just don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. And it seems that lately, the original Black Widow is getting a lot of shade. Scarlett Johansson was doing an interview where she was reminiscing about her time on the Avengers, and I saw that her words were actually taken out of context to make it sound like she hated it, even though she did not. Her words were taken out of context, and then fans of the MCU were dogging on her over words that she didn't actually speak. Her words were twisted. So it's just crazy to me at this point. Why is there so much hate for the original Black Widow? And I did a post of it at the time, and I was amazed. I was getting a lot of those comments too, and even, saying very similar things. And even some people just being I never got the appeal of this character. She was just a supporting character. And it's I don't understand where any of this is coming from, and I need to debunk it all. This idea all of a sudden that Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, was a bad character because she never had a personality, she never had a motivation. That's what someone said. What do you mean she did not have a motivation? Saying that she was bad because she was sexualized in any way, shape, or form, and that therefore she was a bad character. It's all just really ridiculous, and especially in comparison to her knockoff, Yelena Belova. But let's talk about it all. Let's dig deep into this. Was it true that Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, was a bad character? I would say absolutely no. However, is it true that I believe that she has been woefully mishandled and mistreated throughout the years? Yes, and I would in fact go as far as to say that I think that she is a specific character, even if it hasn't been talked about enough, that the MCU has seemed to have a vendetta against at times. But let's cover it all. So first of all, is it true that Black Widow was nothing more than a sexy assassin character? Only for Iron Man 2. Only for Iron Man 2. That movie, she was just there as sort of a tease of the character. We didn't get much development. She was basically just there to look cool and get a cool fight scene, and there you have it. Now, there were some nuances to her character, like how skilled she is as an actress, how skilled she is at manipulating people that we see, and so, we have Tony Stark even talking her up by she's just, amazing. He can't figure her out.
I'm surprised you can keep your mouth.
You're good. You just tear things up. You're a triple. Is there anything real about you?
Like a suit Ray Rum spec is.
Which means?
It means you can either drive yourself home or I can have you collected.
She was being hyped up by that film. I do not want to take away from that. There was but one scene, though. One scene of her changing in the back of a car that was gratuitous when it came to sexualization. And I would say, That was not the norm for the character, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Iron Man 2, yes, Black Widow did not have much of a character, but even then, you can still see that they planted seeds there of who she would be in the future, and they still tried to make her really awesome and cool. But when you get to the Avengers film, that is when Black Widow became a fully fleshed out character. I remember that very first scene when I first saw the Avengers, that very first scene where, and it's just so well done, where she's tied up in the chair and she's being threatened with torture by these guys, and they're talking down to her and she's acting helpless, and you buy into it, and then it's revealed it's all a farce by her. She was doing this all to get information. They are the ones being interrogated by her, and then she beats them all up, and it just shows all of her skill set right on display right there, and that she is the one in charge all along, and that just made her so cool to me. I was in love immediately. But then that scene with her being tied up is perfectly juxtaposed with the scene where she goes to talk to Banner, because we see a scene of her and we get to see her strengths on display, and the scene also establishes how much she cares about Hawkeye, because she really, really cares about her job. But instantly, the thing that immediately takes her out of it is to say, Barton's been compromised.
I need you to come in.
Are you kidding? I'm working. I'm in the middle of an interrogation. This moron is giving me everything. Look, you can't pull me out of this right now.
Natasha. Barton's been compromised.
Let me put you on hold.
So we're already delving in and fleshing out so much of her character in just these little, all you need is a little statement from Coulson, a reaction from her. All we need is this little things. And then, once again, perfectly juxtaposed a scene of showing all her strengths, what she cares about, and then what she fears. When she is asked to go to see the Hulk, she is fearful. This is the first time we've seen such a powerful character legitimately fearful. And we get that in that scene with Banner, where she is cool and she's trying to do the manipulation tactics that we've just seen. But when she is threatened, when she thinks the Hulk is going to come, she reacts and she pulls a gun, and she knows that that is not going to do anything. And it reveals a vulnerability behind all that. So we've just seen her strengths, what she cares about, and her vulnerabilities all on display so quickly. And by the way, it is so great that they take the character with an established fear of the Hulk and then make that the character, our POV character, to see the Hulk finally blow up later, to make that so scary. Like, the first Avengers was just such a well done film. But throughout that film, we continue to get her character fleshed out. We understand what motivates her, that she was this assassin. She did awful things. She takes complete responsibility for that. And what all she wants to do now is, she believes that the only thing to do is to try to do good things to make up for that past. Even though, as she talks to Loki, we can tell that she knows that nothing will ever make up for it. So basically, the Avengers, this is just going over a snippet of it, but the Avengers was just so good with most of its characters in finding these scenes and these little ways to develop them. And so that's why in the Avengers, Natasha was a fully developed character. She was not just the sexy assassin. She was not just the stoic character. There's going to be a little stoicism from her because of her past and the negative things that have happened, but she was fully fleshed out, and I just saw the character as having a depth to her, these vulnerabilities and these areas. There's areas of Natasha where she's a little bit more confident, a little bit more smug in her abilities.
Stop lying.
I only act like I know everything, Rogers.
And then there's these other areas of deep vulnerability. And that's what we see in Captain America Winter Soldier. In that one, we saw a little bit more of a flirtatious and playful side of her. She was not just stoic at all in that movie. And so much is established for her in the Winter Soldier. In the Winter Soldier, Black Widow is presenting the idea of somebody who has already been compromised morally. That's like compromise and sticking to your morals is all what Winter Soldier is about. And she is presented as someone who is actually still morally compromised. She is willing to do anything that S.H.I.E.L.D. wants her to do, and she doesn't care. And that presents us with the idea of, has she really changed? Has she really changed from the person that she was before? And as we go throughout the film, she answers that question for herself. No. And that's her arc in the film. She comes to a new catharsis. She was just being the same person she was before, just working for different people. And all of a sudden there's a catharsis within her to actually actively make the choice to do the right thing.
If it was the other way around, and it was down to me to save your life, and you'd be honest with me, would you trust me to do it?
And we see from her, who she's gonna be when she has to make that choice and make that sacrifice. But throughout the film, we just get so many other nuances. Once again, a playful side to her as she really, really cares about Steve Rogers' love life. And it seems playful, but it also seems at the end that there's a genuine care from her end. And that's why she eggs him on in this direction. She actually cares about him. And I'm just giving a general overview here of everything, but there's also this idea that Natasha is not the same person to different people. And we see that throughout the films where there will be a little bit of a nuance in the changes that come with her between films. It could have been just Scarlett Johansson responding to different director styles, but she tells Steve Rogers in the film she is not all things to all people all the time. She changes herself to different people to hide who she really is, and that tells you a lot about her strengths and her vulnerabilities. Her strength is she is able to manipulate people on this level. Her vulnerability is she doesn't want people to know the real her. She doesn't really want to open up to people, even though in the end she is forced to do that to have all of her past blown open. And that's another major part of growth from her, is like she was running from her past and trying to hide it, but then she is forced to be exposed to the public and all that that means for her. So there was just a lot to Black Widow in these early films. Was there a butt shot or two here? Sure. Guess what? The same thing happened to the male superheroes at Marvel. I have never, Thor is the most sexualized character in all of Marvel. We outright got a straight up nude scene from him and forced against his will. Yet I've never heard anyone say that Thor was not a real character or an invalid character because that happened. But for some reason, they do it to Black Widow. Her being sexualized in any way, shape, or form in any movie means that she wasn't a valid character. But as I said, this character got woefully mistreated over the years. And here's where we go to Avengers Age of Ultron. And no, I am not going to criticize this part for the part that you think I am. There was controversy at the time when this was released, and I don't even know if we should bring this back up, but Black Widow is upset that she can't have any children at one point because she was sterilized. I have absolutely no problem with introducing that in a film that is accurate to the comics, introducing this new side to her, the idea that maybe she wanted to have a family, but she knows that option for her is permanently taken away, a representation of how the Red Room took everything from her and any chance of redemption. All that's fine. My problem was this relationship. Natasha and Bruce, out of nowhere, they came up with this thing. What is the problem with Natasha and Bruce's relationship? First of all, it wasn't in the intention in the original movie, and that has been confirmed by both Joss Whedon and Scarlett Johansson. They were not making up Hulk and Black Widow as if there would ever be a romantic interest there in the first movie. Scarlett Johansson even thought that this was entirely out of character, and I agree. Because all of a sudden, after Black Widow has been very well established as this character, yes, I said there were differing nuances between portrayals in movies, but she still had the core character. She can be a character who presents herself as a different way to different people, but there was still a core character. And that core character was completely uprooted in Age of Ultron in order to facilitate this romance for Bruce and Natasha. Both characters were changed. Why? Because the Avengers 2012 version of Bruce and Natasha would never be interested in each other. Bruce refers to her as a kid in one of the deleted scenes. Bruce is immune to any of her manipulations because he's a very smart man. Natasha is terrified of him, and at the end of the film, it seems that they're on speaking terms at best. There was going to be no connection between the characters. All of a sudden, in Age of Ultron, Bruce Banner is redefined, not as the super smart man, but as the high school geek who is a little bit nervous about the hot girl hitting on him, and Natasha is like the prom queen now who's hitting on the geeky guy. And at no point in any of the 3 films previously did I ever see Natasha as this character. I could never see her as the motherly type who is going to be the one to calm down the Hulk. She did not have any of those qualities whatsoever. You could say maybe she's putting this on a show for him. Once again, Natasha's manipulations did not work on Bruce in the past, and it is not being played up at all as this is another side to her that she's using to manipulate something. This is who she is now. And once again, it was a completely different character where she's sort of just the motherly, soft-hearted character, and it was just a 180 from everything before. And it was a 180 from her motivations, because in the original films, her motivations, and these were renewed and given a bigger resolve in Winter Soldier, was to try to do the right thing, to try to make up for her past, try to be self-sacrificing for others. In Age of Ultron, all of a sudden, she just wants to run away with Bruce. And while she kind of goes back on that at one point for the final battle, according to Joss Whedon, the original version would have had her be upset the rest of the film because Bruce turned her down. So she didn't even want to stay with the Avengers. She just wanted to run away with Bruce in the original version. A complete 180 from her entire character in the past 3 films. And her personality, I think Scarlett Johansson was trying her best, but her personality is completely, I don't mean tweaks, I don't mean nuances, I mean completely different in Age of Ultron. That is the original version for me of character assassination. It is not that it is bad for Black Widow to get a love interest. Her love interest in the comics, Bucky Barnes, he actually was the one that made the connection between her of having a similar past and working through it together. I did not buy her connection between her and Bruce of the whole we're both monsters thing. I think that that was a huge reach, and I think that it changed both characters in order to try to make that happen. Black Widow all of a sudden was Betty Ross, because apparently this is a trope that Joss Whedon really liked. This was just the uprooting of Black Widow's character in Age of Ultron. The problem was she was established to be a certain way for 3 films, and then Age of Ultron just threw all that out in the trash. But the question is, could other films bring her back to normal? Well, Civil War had her back with her old personality again under the Russo brothers, and there's some interesting things in the movie about how she reacts to the Sokovia Accords. She's surprisingly on their side, and it actually makes sense because of how the awful things she's done in the past, that she actually might feel that she should take responsibility and go along with this program. But she is torn because she's built up more of a relationship with Captain America over the years. She wants to be on his side. She actually has a complex story going on, but it's very much in the background because there are too many characters in Civil War and there are too many things going on in the background. So even though I think that she was given as much time as the Russos could, it just couldn't be at the forefront anymore like she was. And we don't see her again until Infinity War, and it was a similar problem. In Infinity War, there were just way too many characters and too much to be explored, so they couldn't do it all at once. So she also got shafted in that movie, and we didn't see much from her. And then it takes us all this time to get to Avengers Endgame, and this movie, though, she was very different. She was very different in both Endgame and Black Widow, even more so in Black Widow. Now, I don't understand what people mean by her having more personality in these films. I started to feel like Scarlett Johansson was less playing Black Widow more than she was just playing herself in these 2 films. And that's especially true for Black Widow. You know, she's much more jokey, but not in a Natasha kind of way in Endgame, but more in a Scarlett Johansson kind of way. They choose not to follow up with the Natasha and Bruce relationships, which I don't mind at all. But then their big conclusion from her is the scene at Vormir, where she sacrifices herself for Hawkeye. Now, this didn't work for me because Hawkeye and Black Widow, while they had a great relationship in the first movie, that once again had gotten the shaft, and we didn't have really any more exploration of it rather than just confirmations that they're close. She knew about his family. They care about each other. They were just confirmations that they were close. They never actually got any expansion or development from the first Avengers movie. Black Widow sacrificing herself was not built up in the film at all. It came out of nowhere. There was nothing else to it other than Black Widow is dead now. That was all it was. And it came off as just a hollow feeling, like, okay, that character's dead. When you kill off a major character and you want to have it satisfying, you have to put real meaning behind it. You can't just say that character is dead now and expect people to just move on. But that's what happened. She would just happen to be the one to sacrifice herself, and while characters mourn for her, that's that. She doesn't even get to see her gravestone at the end after everything. It's Tony's funeral. There was a little thing that they did in this movie, the idea that the Avengers have become Black Widow's family, and that she's finally found a purpose here. But it's been movies since we've really been able to catch up with her and what she's feeling behind the scenes and like how she feels about her purpose in life. In the original films, she was very much resigned to her fate. There will be nothing that she can do in order to make up for her past, but she should still do everything she can to be self-sacrificing and help people now. So has that changed? Has she found a new purpose? Has she found a new positivity and a happiness with the Avengers? Like, we never got to see that play out. It's a very new concept that's just being introduced in Endgame right before they kill her off. And then was the Black Widow film, which I think was the final death blow for this character. Once again, Scarlett Johansson, I think this is something that happens with actors and actresses where they get tired of playing a character and they start to play themselves. I didn't see Black Widow at all in this film. I just saw Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, stop it. Don't do it! No!
And it was such a low effort performance. And it doesn't really try to give the best Black Widow movie it can, so much as I saw it just trying to justify what happened in Endgame. Like this sudden retconned idea of Black Widow, once upon a time she did have a family and she's trying to recreate with that with the Avengers. Like that was just introduced in Endgame, and it felt like this movie was just trying to go back and make up for the lack of development. I mean, maybe it was trying to give her some closure, but I didn't really feel that way because she's already acting as a brighter character from the beginning who's a little bit more like Scarlett Johansson rather than the repressed character that we saw before. There wasn't really that catharsis there, and we still don't get any development on her and Hawkeye's relationship because they decide to make the movie entirely about something else. Black Widow seemed more like a movie there to set up Yelena's character, because at the end, she is the one who gets the big blow-up action scene who defeats the bad guy at the end. And that was the end of the road for Black Widow, and it's unfortunate. And on the way out, I might want to add, there was the controversy between Disney and Scarlett Johansson, where they tried to jib her off of her money that she was owed, and is probably the reason why she is the one Avenger who will never come back at this point, which to me just shows how much they didn't care about her character. And we saw that all throughout her run. She was a great character when she started, so apparently the producers just didn't care about her when it came to Age of Ultron and completely uprooting her story. There wasn't enough time for the Russo brothers to really work on her and the team-up movie she appeared in. Endgame was a completely botched ending, and then as we see with Black Widow, it seemed that they cared more about ripping off Scarlett Johansson and setting up Yelena Belova than they did Black Widow herself. And even to this day, you hear things from Kevin Feige where Joe Locke was talking to him and saying that Black Widow was his favorite character, and Kevin Feige said, wow, no one really says that. So, I don't know, maybe they didn't see the character as profitable for them, so that's why they didn't care about her story so much, but there you have it. So after that long spiel, now we come back to this whole idea about Yelena Belova being better. Well, she didn't get a bulk romance shoehorned in there to uproot her story, but let's look what we have here. Yelena in Black Widow is kind of an inexplicable character. This one explains that she was apparently mind-controlled for some amount of time under the Black Widow program, and when she breaks free, she's for some reason a more or less well-adjusted human being who treats her backstory with a lot of comedy.
I don't get my period, dipshit. Yeah, that's what happens when the Red Room gives you an involuntary hysterectomy. They kind of just go in and they rip out. They just get right in there. Okay. So you can't have babies.
Who treats tragic backstory and the awful things done to her as a joke, whereas Black Widow treated it with gravitas. And Yelena from the beginning is just kind of a joke machine who doesn't really believe in the superhero life and wants to kind of live a normal life and explore the world there. That's what she meant by getting a dog. But then after that, we saw her a little bit in Hawkeye, where Val, she started working for her, and she tries to kill Hawkeye because she was lied to by Val about him killing Black Widow, but Hawkeye tells her the truth, and Yelena moves on from there. But for some reason, Yelena apparently still works for Val, who lied to her about Natasha's death. But then randomly, in Thunderbolts, we get the idea that Yelena is actually really depressed. Like, she suffers from depression, and she needs to find a purpose in life. And it's like that in and of itself is kind of a contradiction before, where for some reason they portrayed her as a well-adjusted human being, despite going through all this horrible stuff, and only now do they start to treat it with the gravitas that it deserves. But Yelena is still a joke machine. You know, you guys can complain about Natasha being stoic or too serious, but there was a reason. Like, that added up with her past and who she was before. If you were enslaved as a child and forced to kill people, you probably wouldn't be a joke machine constantly, but that's who Yelena is. But in terms of Yelena's character in this movie, like, Black Widow wanted to do good things because she thought that that was the right thing to do after what she had done in her past. And that's part of what made her compelling. She was legitimately this awful person, and she wanted to be a good person, even though she knew it would never truly make up for the past. Now, Yelena, she brushed off the idea of being a hero. The only reason why Yelena starts to want to be a hero is because Alexei tells her it'll make herself feel better. Natasha was not doing good things because she thought it would make her feel better. Nothing could make her feel better. It was because she thought it was the right thing to do. Yelena starts to do hero work for her own self because she is told that might make her feel better. But once again, it just doesn't make sense throughout the movie. It's like Yelena's trauma that has recently been reintroduced from the Black Widow program after they weren't really treating it as trauma before is all absolved by Alexei telling her a story of how he remembers the good parts from when she was 6 years old. And it's like, for trauma that deep, it's not going to all just be lifted off of her because she had a conversation with someone who said, just remember the good parts when you were little. This was my problem with the movie, trying to tie such a big, extreme, fantastical root of depression and just trauma and horrible things that you've done, like murdering people as a child, and try to make it seem more trivial, like the everyday depression that we might feel. It just did not work for me. They say that Yelena, when she was on the Thunderbolts, the team, her soccer team, would always be there to want to support others. But we don't really see a lot from that. Not in the Black Widow movie, not in Hawkeye. And in the Thunderbolts movie, it's really only Bob that she kind of creates a connection with. And then in the end, it's like, okay, what is the hook? Apparently, Yelena feels a little better now after that conversation and being on the new Avengers team, which she accepts with the girl who tried to kill her and lied to her and that they really should put in jail. First of all, terrible heroes. They don't even put the awful terrorist lady in jail. They go along with her just so they can be the new Avengers. But like, what is the hook for her going forward? Black Widow had a stated motivation in the first Avengers movie that was going to carry her forward. Yelena has no motivation. Apparently, she's a hero because she wants to support people and it makes her feel better. That is not a strong motivation that makes me interested in what development she could possibly have or what depth she could possibly have in later films. Yelena is just a knockoff, bad, worse version of Black Widow. Even though I agree Black Widow was not treated well in the past, at least that she was a better character than Yelena. But I just can't help but wonder because I know how badly Black Widow has been treated in the past by the people behind the scenes at Marvel. So I'm wondering if they wanted some of that narrative out there that, yeah, Black Widow wasn't a good character. Forget about her. Yelena is so much better. Like, just trying to disparage the old to promote the new forward. I'm not saying that there weren't people out there that legitimately thought that, but it does seem that Marvel would like that narrative to be out there because Yelena is the character that they really want to push. Until after Thunderbolts didn't do well, and I don't know if that character will just be killed off after this. Now, just to get back to something about Black Widow, like, I used to love that character, and I was really brokenhearted about what happened with her in Age of Ultron, to say the least. I am going to do a video on the entire movie of Age of Ultron and that whole story if you want to stay tuned for that. But Black Widow was a character who I think could have been a strong female superhero icon. But she wasn't treated well over the years. They didn't take care of her. And that's just really unfortunate to me because I see in the original version of Black Widow in these films, they really had something there. They really had a character with a lot of dimension and nuance and a lot of intrigue, but they never really followed through on it. And we never got that Black Widow movie we should have gotten. And the best we get is Black Widow knockoff films that look more about what we should have had than the actual Black Widow film. But I want to still respect that character and the work that Scarlett Johansson put into her. The good stuff, the stuff like Winter Soldier and the first Avengers, and all the positives from this character. She was not just a sexy assassin character. She was not just overly serious and boring. There was actual work put into her writing and an actual three-dimensional character there. And I wish that people would appreciate that. Like, why are we disparaging what was old to prop up what was new? The reason why I'm so harsh on these movies is they're saying that they're back, and I'm like, no, you guys used to put out amazing movies with amazing character work, and we need to go back to that, and we need to avoid more Age of Ultrons that are just disrupting things, and we need to make sure that we give these characters the best chance that we can. So we should always stick with the stuff that was best so that we can best move going forward. So yeah, I am a Black Widow stan, and luckily there are things with her that are not in the main MCU, so that character will live on. But, the conversation has actually made me start to hate Yelena because people are using her to disparage the originals so much, and I just do not agree. The modern stuff that is coming from the Marvel movies is not anything close to the original films. And I am not going to forget how good the original films were and start settling for less. But that is all I got for you guys today. What did you think of this video? Did I change your mind on Natasha Romanoff Black Widow? I hope you enjoyed this retrospective. If you want to support my work, you can check out my channel memberships or patronship, or check out my list of short films, and I will see you guys next time.